Hello and welcome to the next episode of the Self-Development with Tactics podcast and or video, whatever you're just watching or listening to right now. And today, as you can see, we're going to discuss 15 tips on how successful people think from the businessinsider.com website. And this article, and I'm sorry because yeah, I'm right. This article is from 2011. I was just searching before the recording, but it has really great insights. And we'll head right to the first point of this article. Thinking is a discipline. If you want to be better at it, you've got to work at it. Consider developing a thinking schedule like Chick-fil-A CEO Dan Cathy, who sets aside a half day every 2 weeks and a whole day every month, and 2 or 3 full days every year to just think. And thinking is a really important skill you have to learn. And think outside of your box and outside of your head, because in terms of marketing, it's not about what you are thinking, it's about what other people are thinking. But it's a whole different chapter. Figure out where you need to focus your energy and then use the 80-20 rule. If you don't know the 80-20 rule, it's explained right there. I'm sorry. Don't know what happened, but nevertheless, devote 80% of your energy to the most important 20% of your activities. This is one interpretation. My interpretation, or what I think the 80-20 rule is, that 80%, let me think. It's just a really hard one every single time I'm thinking about it. 80%. Yes, 80% of the work is done by 20% of the time. And the other 20% of the work is done by the other 20%, by the other 80% of the time. Which means that to be really perfect, you're just wasting a ton of time and energy, because you're really willing to get those 20%, which are most of the time unnecessary. So give a fuck about the 20% and move on and be more efficient. Remember that you can't be everywhere, know everyone and do everything, and avoid multitasking. It can cost you 40% efficiency. It's what I learned yesterday, and I instantly wrote it into my latest post. Do not consume and produce at the same time, because it won't work. People, even though they are telling you, can't multitask. It's just impossible. It's just a really quick change of what you're doing, which seems to be multitasking, but actually isn't, as far as I know. Smart thinkers expose themselves to different ideas and types of people. They are also selective about spending most of the time with people who challenge them. That's true. It won't get you anywhere by hanging around with people you're much better than. People say that you are the sum of the 5 people you're most of the time hanging around with. So if you're hanging around with 5, let's say, multimillionaires all the time, the chance is high that you are getting wealthy as well, because you have a lot of input, a lot of knowledge by just being next to them, by just doing what they are doing, by just, it's something I've talked already about. which is called it's called osmosis, right? Which basically means that you're learning by watching somebody doing something you're willing to learn. And it was participated, or it was practical some years ago, and nowadays it's not as, 500 years ago, when you were willing to get in this shoe business, what would you do? You would go to a shoemaker and watch them making shoes, and because of that, you will be able to or you would have been able to make shoes by yourself. But let's move on. And actually, yes, no ads. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. It's one thing to have they're really, really, really. So what should I do now? I can't do anything. Are they serious? Or I am just a dumb fucker? I'm just a dumb fucker, it seems, yes. Yeah, there were 46 ads blocked on this website. I would do the same if I had such a great website, because businessinsider.com, this time not DE, is great. It's one thing to have an idea, another to follow through. Ideas have a short shelf life. You must act on them before the expiration date. That's right. There are a lot of things, for example, using social media as advertising platforms, that might be not as good as they are right now in 5 years, 10 years, 2 years, 1 year, who knows. Yeah, thoughts need time to develop. Don't just settle on the first thing that comes to mind. Remember the last time you had a brilliant idea at 2 a.m., but it sounded sort of ridiculous when you woke up the next morning? Everybody knows that thoughts need to be shaped until they have substance and need to stand the test of clarity and questioning. Smart people collaborate with other smart people. This is also in terms of what I said just a few minutes ago about you are the sum, or the yes, sum. It's not really the sum, but in general it means that you are the 5 people you are hanging around with, and that's also something that comes into it. Thinking with other yields higher returns. It's like giving yourself a shortcut. That's why brainstorming sessions are so effective. I don't really like brainstorming, by the way. So sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's great, but the people who say that you have to do brainstorming are just not poorly educated, but wrong, because if you are a person that likes to list up things, or likes to talk about things to get ideas, then you should do that and not do brainstorming or mind maps. I was thinking about mind maps, I'm sorry. Reject popular thinking, which often means not thinking at all. That's right. People are always going in the direction other people are going. Too many people act hoping that others have thought things through first. To reject popular thinking, you must be okay with feeling uncomfortable. Also uncomfortable. Also remember that right now there are a bunch of other people out there deciding to think for themselves, and they are the ones who are successful. The best thinkers plan ahead while leaving room for some spontaneity. When you're strategic, you reduce your margin of error. Simply having vague ideas of where you are and what you want to accomplish will get you nowhere. The keys to being strategic is 1. Break the issue down. 2. Ask why the problem needs to be solved. 3. Identify the key issue. And 4. Review your resources. And last but not least, 5. Put the right people in place. Breaking the issue down it's great that they put it in first place, because a lot of times things seem really big, even though if you just break them down into smaller pieces, it's just more likely that you're either starting with it. People say, one motivational speaker I was listening to once said that the chance of doing something you are thinking right now, if you don't act right now, is just 1 to 90 or something. Nevertheless, it's pretty high. It was pretty high. It's kind of true. For some people, for me, it's not real. But I was just thinking about it. Ask why the problem needs to be solved. It's a really important question, because, if you're asking that yourself, you might be like, oh, that problem is already solved and you don't need it to be solved anymore. And then you have to think again and then break it down again. Maybe you should probably ask yourself if it needs to be solved in the first place. But never mind. Identify the key issue. That's in terms of solving the problem, just knowing what it's all about, and if you can, break something apart and let the one half be the one half, and you just working on one of the two halves. You're just working on what's really important and not what's unnecessary for now or in general. Put the right people in place. Review your resources. You should always know what you have and what you have to get and what you don't have to get. Put the right people in place. Working with the right people is always important. Henry Ford once said, "Nothing is particularly hard if you divide it into smaller parts." Just what I said. A lot of things seem really, really, really big. But after you broke it down in really small pieces, you'd be like, oh, that's something I can achieve. It's something I can make. And that's why you should do this. To think differently, do different things. It's so funny that there are such a lot of things that remind me on other things. You can't expect anything by doing the same thing all the time. You can't expect something different if you're just doing the same thing over and over and over again. It's quite the same as to think differently, do different things. Try new routes to work, meet new people, read books you might even consider boring. The key is exposure to new ideas and ways of life. If you're in my age, I'm 17, there are a lot of things you can do, and you just should try out a lot of things. And even if you're 40, 50, 60, try out things. You only will learn out of it. To appreciate others' ideas, you need to value other ideas. You can't think you're always right, give other people concepts a chance. Have an agenda for the day and when you meet with people. Too many people only plan for the day. Smart thinkers take time to plan out their weeks, months, and long-term goals, and then they follow through. They also don't walk into meetings, parties, and coffee debates blind. They decide what they want to learn from people before walking through the door. Yeah, it's always important. Also important if you're going grocery shopping. You will not buy any shit when you have a list of things you really need. You can really save money by this. Reflective thinking gives you perspective and confidence in your decision-making skills. If you're not reflecting, it's holding you back more than you think. As Socrates said, an unexamined life is not worth living. Yeah, you should always be thinking like, is this right what I'm doing? Is this what I'm doing getting me to my end goal? It's really important to think about this. Is this necessary what I'm right now doing, what I'm doing right now? And so on. Just think, was I wrong? Most of the time people think that the other person is wrong. Just be like, it was your fault, because you think about it. And it's really something everybody does. Everybody just says you have to pay attention to it. It's just really, really, really astonishing that people always be like, yeah, it's your fault. It's not my fault, it's your fault. And it's really funny. If you keep attention to it, you will smile and you will think about it. You will think about me saying this right now. Get over negative self-talk. We not think in terms of I will and I can. Smart people don't see limitations, they see possibilities. That has nothing to do with smart people. Some people are like this and some people are not like that, but not smart people in general don't see limitations. I wouldn't say so. Former baseball star Sam Ewing once said that nothing is so embarrassing as watching someone do something that you said could not be done. It's always the same thing. This happens. Creative people are dedicated to ideas. They embrace ambiguity. It's Ambiguity. Don't know what it is pronounced, what this word even means. Don't fear failure and hang out with other creative people. By failing, you only will learn. That's something you have to think about. We'll make this too. Naturally optimistic people find it hard to be realistic thinkers. A realistic perspective allows you to get close enough to a problem in order to tackle it. Facing potential consequences also helps you be more efficient, and it gives you credibility. To become a more realistic thinker, you must 1. Appreciate the truth. 2. Do your homework and get the facts. 3. Think about the pros and cons. 4. Consider the worst case scenario. And 5. Align your thinking with your reasons. Most of the time the worst case scenario isn't that bad when it happens, or when it is happening. At the end of the day, it's important to remember we can all change the way we think. Learning how to master the process of thinking leads you to productive thinking. If you can develop the discipline of good thinking and turn it into a lifetime habit, then you will be successful and productive all over your life. And it's something meditation helps with, something I just, really recognized. When you are impatient, that's what I always notice. This impatience, you're just willing to get through this article as fast as you can. You want that information. You want to do this as fast as you can. And so on, you get impatient. And one thing that happens, because I meditate every single day for 10 minutes, you should gradually, move up with your meditation time. Start with 1 minute, then with 2, and so on and so on. You will be like, okay, I see this impatience in my system. And then you are like, no, calm down. I'm not impatient. Calm down. And the impatience goes away. It happens, yes. It's like this. I feel it like this. Doesn't mean that you experience it the same way as I am right now. But nevertheless, I'm really thankful for you to listen to me or watch me reading this article. And if you're trying, I would be really thankful to, if you check out my social media channels and or give me a like and or subscribe to my podcast and or YouTube channel. Thank you. See you later.